Hello and welcome. If you are new here, my name is Desiree. I am a liturgical dancer and I have been for 20 years now. I started this channel to help people learn more about praise dance, Christian dance, liturgical dance, worship dance. Those are all the names that it's called. It's basically where you are dancing with whatever skill set you have for the glory of God. Today, I am recording a teaching on the biblical foundation of liturgical dance. This is for the future generations and all of the posterity that might come from my church, their praise dance group. When I'm no longer there, you will still have these teachings as a foundation for the ministry, as well as those who are interested in starting their own praise dance ministry. So, a little bit about me. I started praise dance in 2003. I was a freshman in college. It was the spring of 2003. We had started a gospel steppers. We were a step team group. And there was a ministry behind that. So there was a gospel message behind our stepping, right? And that inspired another young lady to start a praise dance group. At the time, I had not heard anything about that. And those of us on the step team decided to support her in starting her praise dance team with the university. So it basically it was a club. You could start any club as long as you had a professor to oversee the club. So we started it, we supported her, and it felt so right for me. I've always loved dancing. I just never really did it outside of like family reunions or family weddings. Um, you know, um, I was I got saved when I was 13 and I loved to dance. I always wanted to. I just never went out to dance. I was saving that for marriage, among other things. So I just didn't go, out dancing, but it was always a passion of mine. And I'm sharing that because God places in us a gift to dance, a love for dance. And I think that that passion for dance is not a coincidence. Okay. Um, and so Ruach Worship International is for all dancers. Some of you may have grew up praise dancing, but you also were trained, or you had other passions, or you went off to college and you started cheerleading, and or you're on the color guard, and maybe you just felt like you weren't welcomed on the praise team anymore. But I'm here to tell you that if you have a passion for dance, if it fills your soul, and that is the case for me, then I believe that there's something for you in praise dance, whether you are called to minister, which we'll get into that later in the series, knowing the difference between a passion for dance and a call to dance ministry, because those are two different things. And just because you are called to dance ministry, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all you do either, unless the Lord guides you in all of that. So this is a very spirit-led ministry. I am a spirit-led woman. Thus, the name of the ministry is Ruach, or Breath of God Dance Ministry. The Spirit of God, or the Ruach HaKodesh, is what breathes that life into us. When we are absorbing air, we are breathing in God himself. In Genesis, it says, God breathed on Adam and he became a living soul. Okay, so there is power in the Spirit of God. It's not by might, not by power, but by his Spirit, okay, that we overcome, that we live, move, and have our being. I can keep going on. So the Ruach ministry, which is an international ministry to help bring together people of all different backgrounds, all different experiences, and bring us together under this umbrella of loving to worship God. Even if you're not a part of a dance ministry team at your church, maybe your church doesn't allow dance, you can still dance for God. I've had plenty of wonderful encounters in dance right in my living room, So with that being said, what is praise dance and what is the biblical foundation of liturgical or praise dance. Now, I do have a dance series, What is Praise Dance, that I will link below. If you have not seen that yet, there is a plethora of videos, including prophetic dance, which is a whole different subsection of praise dance. So let's begin talking about the biblical foundation of liturgical dance. Okay, so my name is Desiree. This is Breath of God Dance Ministry, or Ruach Worship International. So I already introduced myself and all of my years of dance. Whether I'm ministering in churches, I have done dance intercession or prayer over my city, dancing. I have joined in dance with others. No matter what it is, I have been praise dancing for quite some time. And I want to talk about major dancers in scripture, okay? So one thing I want to say is that dance itself is generally a part in the old country, the old world. Dance was so much a part of culture that it wasn't necessarily singled out, okay? So in African cultures, Middle Eastern cultures, if you've ever attended any of their weddings or special events, they tend to have dance, right? Because it's just such an integral part of their culture and their society, okay? So the word dance may not be in scripture, but when we'll get into this a little later, but when you hear stuff like rejoice, okay, it is implicated that that is also it is an implication that they were rejoicing, as in twirling and spinning around or in procession, okay? They were moving their bodies because it was just a part of the culture. So Miriam, one of the dancers in scripture, I'm going to read this for you guys, is Exodus 15, 19 through 21. That's Exodus 15. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen into the sea. And the Lord brought again the waters of the sea upon them, but the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. Blah, 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 blah. And Miriam answered them, sing ye to the Lord, or Yehovah, anytime you see Lord in scripture, especially in all caps. It is God's name. That's a whole long story, but it was taken out for a certain reason and replaced with capital Lord. For he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. Okay, so that's Miriam. Okay, popular dance scripture in the Bible. So Miriam, who was a prophetess, also was a dancer. So this is an example of not only liturgical dance, but prophetic dance, okay? And song, for that matter. Another dancer that you may or may have heard of if you grew up in church was David, which is a man. You know, sometimes we think that praise dance is just for girls. It isn't. Okay, but again, it's just cultural differences. Men dance. If you go to Greece, you go to the Middle East, you go to Israel, Africa, men dance. It's not as weird as it might be in the US. So David in 2 Samuel chapter 6, starting in verse 14, wearing a linen ephod, David was dancing before the Lord with all his might. Verse 15, while he and all Israel were bringing up the ark of the Lord with shouts and the sound of trumpets. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. And when she saw King David leaping and dancing before Yehovah, she despised him in her heart. They brought the ark of Yehovah and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before Yehovah. After he had finished sacrificing the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord Almighty. Then he gave a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins to each person in the whole crowd of Israelites, both men and women. And all the people went to their homes. When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, how the king of Israel has distinguished himself today. going around half naked in full view of all the slave girls for his servants, as any vulgar fellow would. Such sarcasm. David said to Michal, "It was before Jehovah who chose me rather than your father." Couple dynamics. For any for over rather than your father or anyone from his house, when he appointed me ruler over Jehovah's people, Israel. I will celebrate before Jehovah. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor. But by these slave girls that you spoke of, I'll be held in honor. So basically what he was saying was that, I'm going to humiliate myself. And I love this scripture because it talks about worship itself. It's a mindset of worship. Okay. A willingness to humiliate yourself, to maybe look silly, but it's an abandon. There's a freedom in worshiping God without being concerned of what other people may think of you, or even your station in life. The fact that he was a king, he did not let that deter him. Okay. So this is a wonderful verse of scripture to think about and study when you think of dance. Okay. Because some churches look down on dance, and some rightfully so. It just depends on what they were exposed to and how they were introduced to praise dance or Christian dance. Okay. If they've seen vulgar things or things that look like the world, then I understand their reluctance to have that in their church, which is why I started this channel and this ministry, to be sort of a guardian and guide in dance, because there is an appropriate way to dance in church, so to speak, but not to the place where we can't move and be free. So there's that fine line between I can worship God with abandon and be extravagant in my worship, but not to the point where I'm glorifying Satan instead of glorifying God. Okay. I want to talk about the Hebrew dance tradition. Okay. When you see in scripture words like rejoice, triumph, joyful, okay, a lot of that is an indication of dance, even though they don't use the word dance. Okay. Shakag, to move in a circle, to march in a sacred procession. Okay. You see that a lot at Hebrew weddings. Okay. All lots. I tried to do the pronunciations, y'all. All lots, to jump for joy. Okay, exult, rejoice. Okay, this is no different than people do at sports games or rock concerts, right? How could it be wrong before the Lord? Ghoul, to spin around. Okay, that is rejoice. Okay, or it can be cringing in fear. Okay, halika, halikao, walking in procession, march, caravan, and company. So think of a wedding procession, okay, or think of a march, or like a parade. Okay, nafar, to jump, to leap. Okay, also to terrify. The enemy is terrified by the rejoicing saints of God. Okay, a lot of times in scripture you see the worshipers went out first, right? That caused terror upon their enemies. Rakad, to dance, to spring about wildly for joy. Okay, and so there's a lot of cultural context that's so important when you're learning about scripture. Okay, because what you and your grandma might consider to be wild behavior is what other cultures might just consider to be rejoicing and dancing. Okay, so we have to be very careful not to Europeanize everything, because the Hebrew culture and God's chosen people did not come from England. They came from the Middle East. They came from an area where they had their own culture, their own traditions of what's considered appropriate and not appropriate, okay, or normal, right? Which is why it's important to learn about these things so that you can have an answer for the hope that's within you, right? These are more scriptures for you guys to look at, so you can jot this down. I didn't want to make this too long. I hope that you have found this helpful. This is the biblical foundation of liturgical dance series. Um, that I just wanted to record, put on my YouTube channel for you guys to enjoy. I do have another video for those of you who've been here for a while. I've been going a little bit deeper into some of the other aspects of praise dance, and I wanted to talk about spiritual warfare and how you might experience some turbulence when you are being led by God to minister a song that might set other people free. So that's what's coming up next. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching.